Meredith here from Spoonflower. Today I'm here to show you how to make a really easy fabric necklace. This project is great if you're looking for a quick gift to give that special someone, or if you just need to get rid of some fabric from that stash. Ready to get started? For this project, you're going to need a sewing machine, a cutting mat, scissors, a rotary cutter, masking tape, straight edge, and 2 yards of knit fabric. We recommend Spoonflower's cotton spandex jersey or modern jersey. The first step for this project is to cut your piece of fabric 8 inches wide and 48 inches long. When you're setting up your fabric, you're going to want to make sure that the stretch of the fabric is going across the width of the fabric, left to right, selvage to selvage. You'll be able to tell that the stretch is going across the right way when it's stretchier than the length of your fabric. Let's get started. First, I'm going to cut the width of the fabric. Because I'm working in a smaller space, I've decided to fold my fabric into quarters. It makes it a little bit easier to work. So first, I'm going to cut an 8-inch wide strip of fabric. You can move any excess fabric out of the way at this point. Now I'm going to unfold my fabric and cut a 24-inch strip long ways. Before cutting all the strips of my fabric, I'm going to start with just one strip that I'm going to set aside. The strips can be about a 1/2 inch wide up to a full inch. You're going to want to set this strip aside and use for a later step. Now what you're going to want to do is flip your fabric so that the folded side is towards you. This next step is optional. For the next strips that we're going to cut, you don't want to cut all the way through the fabric. So I always add a piece of tape just to make sure I remind myself to stop. You'll want to make sure that the tape is about a 1/2 inch in from the uncut edges. Now we're going to use our ruler and cut 1/2 inch wide strips of fabric. If you're not the best at measuring or you're in a hurry, it's all right if your strips are a little bit wider. You can get all kinds of different looks by doing different widths of strips. This is where you'll want to make sure that you stop right where you've got your tape placed. You're going to want to continue cutting strips until you've cut all of the fabric width. Now that I've cut all of the strips of fabric, it's going to be time to head over to the sewing machine. Now we're going to want to stitch our 2 ends together to make one continuous loop. If you want, you can go ahead and just stitch directly on top of the 2 pieces. If it's a little bit easier, you can do a little bit of overlapping. That's the method I'm going to use. I'm using a wide zigzag stitch, and if you're new to sewing and a little nervous, this is a great project to get started with because we're actually going to be covering your stitches, so if they're not perfect, nobody will know. Once you have your fabric all lined up, you'll want to put the needle down and then lower your presser foot. Remember to backstitch once you're started sewing to secure those stitches. Make sure that you don't catch any of those loose strips while you're starting to stitch the 2 pieces together. Now you're going to want to pull the fabric towards you and trim any excess threads. So now I've got a complete loop. Let's get ready to hide the string that you've just stitched. Now that we've sewn our two ends together, it's time to use our extra piece of fabric and cover that seam. First, take that small strip of fabric we cut earlier and pull it so that the design starts to curl in on itself. Once you've done that, you're going to take this same piece of fabric and create a loop where you have about a 4-inch tail. You can go ahead and set it aside and grab your other piece of fabric. Now we're going to want to scrunch that seam that we just created, going from left to right. Once you've scrunched your fabric, go ahead and pick up that extra piece that you just set aside. You're going to want to put the loop going in the same direction as the way the fabric is falling, so it'll want to be parallel. Next, take that longer tail, and you've got your smaller tail, and you're going to go ahead and start wrapping it around the entire piece of fabric. You want to start lower, covering a little bit of that 4-inch tail, but make sure you leave some of it still exposed. The whole point of this step is to wrap around the whole entire necklace so that you're covering the seam. We don't want to be showing off those threads that we just stitched together. Keep working your way up until you get to a point where you no longer see your threads that you just stitched. When doing this step, make sure that you're applying enough pressure and pulling tight enough so that the strip isn't just hanging loosely. Okay, so I've covered all of my fabric and all of my thread, so I'm going to go ahead and take that longer tail and put it through the top of that top loop. You can go ahead and let go and find that smaller tail. Next, you're just going to want to start pulling that tail, and you'll notice your loop is going to get pulled in underneath your fabric. This is so we can secure a knot without it being visible. So there you can see we've covered our seam, and it looks like a really great finished product. Now for the really fun part. We're going to want to start stretching our fabric so that the design curls in like we just did for that smaller strap. If you want, you can go ahead and pull them all at the same time, get a little workout, or just keep running your fingers through. Once you get to a point where you really like the way the fabric's looking and you feel like it's pulled enough, you're ready to go. Start wearing that fabulous necklace you've just made. You can put it around your neck, you can let it hang loose, or like I prefer, you can wrap it around your neck twice.